All right, we are rolling live. Hello, and welcome everyone to another installment of Get a Clue in 52 for speakers with my co-author and co-host Sue Mathieson. Sue, what's happening? How are you? What's happening all the way down under?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. It's almost middle of Saturday for me. Yeah, so starting to enjoy the weekend. Yeah.
Well, I have a question for you, and you don't have to answer it right now because we may not have enough time. It's a little bit rhetorical. But down under, do you guys know what March Madness is? Do you guys know what March Madness is? The
No,
Isn't that
no.
incredible, right? So we have to let you, Sue, and everybody else know that March Madness is the time of year where all of the college basketball teams get together and the ones that qualify to make the tournament have a big tournament. And it's crazy and it's well advertised and it's well hyped. It's incredibly well branded. And
Right.
that's one of the things that we're talking about right now is bring out your brand. And so we have to start off today by letting everyone know that I am in a bar watching March Madness with all of the college basketball games going on. I was invited to this event by a client of mine, Gupta, Evans, and Ayers. They didn't pay me to say this. I'm going to say it. Gupta, Evans, and Ayers. They do bankruptcy and real estate litigation and representation. They can do a lot, but that's the primary jam. And I've been coaching AJ Gupta for a number of years, and I'm so happy and fulfilled, Sue, because this morning I was at their office process consulting on effective meetings for their task-oriented group, and they're installing a culture of accountability in their law firm, and that's not something that a lot of law firms do. We believe, Sue, you know this, that soft skills make
Yeah.
strong leaders. Soft skills
Yeah.
make strong teams. Soft skills make strong organizations. And so public speaking is a soft skill. Presentation skills are soft skills. That's what we're all about. So I'm trying to through line this and be vulnerable and what's the word? Authentic, and being very clear that my team, San Diego State University, played today and won today. So we survived.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yay.
we survived and we advanced. So we're all very happy here. And we have a tip to read, and it's about branding, right? Look at me, San Diego State University, the integrity game. We came off of 10 tips. Our first 10 tips were all about the integrity game, which is a
Yeah.
brand in and of itself. And now, though, we're in section 2. So let me get clear about this. The first section, the first 10 tips we read, were all about the integrity game. That's its own brand, but we thought it was relevant to our project. Now we're in Bring Out Your Brand. And we're in tip number 2 of this section, tip number 12 overall. So let me dish it up to you for a minute to have any introductory remarks, and let's lead us into the tip reading for today, Sue.
Sure. Yeah. So with this section, we started out with "Don't be a spectator," and it was talking. So that was last week, and my apologies to anyone that happened to be tuning in, and I dropped out, and it was my phone unfortunately overheated, and I left Jeff in the lurch. So
Can I say something? Can I say something about that? Can I say something about because here's the thing. I was preparing this, what I'm about to say, to apologize for myself, being the environment that I am. I'm in a bar and people are celebrating March Madness and there's professional networking going on. And my client is here and we're both part of the same organization and my Aztecs won. And I was about to apologize for myself, given the environment. And then guess what came to my mind? I'm like, well, isn't it great we're doing 52 of these?
yeah, absolutely.
Like, hey, let's have a laugh. If this is the only one, we'd be fucked. But we've been doing, hey, this is our 12th straight. What have you been doing for 12 weeks straight? Hey, give us a little love here. Take it away, Sue. Continue.
It's so true, and I really think that we were talking last week about don't be a spectator, and that's certainly one thing I'm finding is that weekly commitment, that showing up, and I'm sure that Jeff, you've got some comments of how that ties in from a branding perspective too, in terms of consistency and the value that you bring to what you are doing, what you believe in, what you want to share. So, and we talked about from the perspective of not being a spectator is that even if you choose to say, oh, I don't need a brand, you're actually creating one for yourself because you're not showing up,
That's your
because you're
brand.
not sharing a message. And that exactly, because the audience will make their own interpretation. So
Yeah, let
the
me
whole
say it
point
this way.
being,
Let me say
yeah,
it this way. Can I put it in Klubi snack form? You tell me if
go.
this is eligible for Klubi snack status. If you're not establishing an expectation to the marketplace, that is your expectation to the marketplace.
So true. So true. Yeah.
I want the
And
marketplace to know. I want the marketplace to know that they're going to get a true, authentic Jeff every minute of every second of every hour of every month, whatever it is. You're going to get true Jeff 100% of the time. I want the marketplace to know that. Carry on, Sue. This is wonderful.
yeah, and so the risk you run in doing that is that
Yeah.
you have the market assess you as less than what you truly or who you truly are. And question is, do you want that? Probably
We don't
no.
want that. We don't want that.
No. And so
Uh,
today we're going to differentiate us, which is tip 2 in this section of what's the difference then between the brand and branding. Over to you, Jeff.
all right. Yeah. Well, Sue, help me out here. Am I starting straight from the top of page
Yeah.
64 or? Okay. Thank you, Sue.
Yes.
Here
Yep.
we go.
Straight
All
into
right.
page 64.
Here we go. We're in the word for word now. That's what we do, word for word, but we want to warm it up. And I'm on site. I'm in the environment. Here we go. By choosing to be proactive, you are now in control of your brand. And as we mentioned in the previous tip, a brand is a promise to the marketplace. So the next step is to know the difference between brand versus branding. Aside from the obvious, that one is a noun and the other is a verb, be clear that a brand is the message, parentheses, your promise to the marketplace. Remember, in parentheses, whereas branding is the totality of action aimed at putting brand messages into the marketplace. If only for the time you will save in your meetings and dialogue with others about marketing yourself as a speaker, make sure you are all on the same page with your terminology. The brand is the promise. The branding is how the promise is sent, received in the marketplace. One is content, the other delivery. Further benefits from this tip include a healthy division of labor between your techies, who, parentheses, who want to know the technology to get your message out, and the people who are more likely to be your wordsmiths, your sloganeers, if it is more than just you on your marketing team. Another reason to know the difference between brand and branding is so each gets its fair share, an undiluted share of attention. When when you are asking your brain for the words to communicate a promise, it will produce different answers than it would if you asked it for the best channels across which to deliver that promise.
Yeah, and that's a really important differentiation to note. When I'm looking for words to communicate as a promise, they will come from a different part of my brain than I would be using when strategizing the branding process. Hence, giving each area its due focus makes sense.
That's right. It is a very simple tip, but critical that we always remember to keep in mind the difference between your brand and your branding. Those terms could get juxtaposed and confuse the entrepreneur, the speaker, the business owner from what to do next. But if we can help segment and compartmentalize our understanding of the totality of branding, marketing, communication, then it might be helpful, right? So as speakers, what's my brand? What do I promise to the? I'm like. Let me just use my. Can I use myself as the example?
Sure. Yeah.
I promise non-threatening accountability. I promise non-threatening accountability. That's my promise. When you bring me into your organization, I will install a culture of non-threatening accountability. That's my promise. But now how I get that promise out to the world is by reading a tip from Get A Klu 52 every week. Or being at a networking event during March Madness where I mean you can see it. I don't even have to keep talking, right? You can see it for your own eyes how conscious I am of my brand and my branding. Where do I go? What am I wearing? What am I saying? What's my messaging? Where do I position myself? What's my target audience? What are the channels that I use to get my message out to the marketplace? I'm not just at a bar drinking to support my team. Everybody behind me, and I've blurred my screen, but everybody behind me, they're all members of the same professional networking organization. I was invited here by a client of mine. I'm integrating all of it.
Yeah.
And I defer. Sue, what do you have to say? What do you have? What any comments or questions?
Well, one question that comes to mind is, and I really appreciate your comments on this, is would you say that your brand is set in concrete and it's the branding that is flexible, or are there situations where your brand promise may shift?
Yes, 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 and yes, and yes, and yes, and a couple more yeses. Okay. First of all, I love what you set up, concrete versus flexible. It's a really important question to ask ourselves. It's a really important frame to run a question through, right? Like, what a great filtering and qualifying mechanism before you even ask the question. So I love that. And then, yes, further to there are some things, and it's up to each and every speaker, each and every business, right, to understand what is immovable about your promise to the marketplace. Like, not moving off of this, and what is flexible. So imagine when you were speaking the way you were speaking, I was imagining a tree.
Yeah.
Trunk and branches are more flexible than leaves. I mean, sorry, more pertinent. Sorry, you got to understand. Trunks and branches are more stable, ongoing, lifelong than leaves, flowers, pollen, fruit.
Yeah, that come and go.
Yeah. So and then I think about Star Wars, right? Jedis don't think in absolutes. So when we're tempted, because speaking and representing an organization, representing a product, representing an event, facilitating a sale or a strategic objective plan in the boardroom, whether you're in the conference room, the boardroom, the break room. It's really important. It's really important to get the trunk. What's the trunk? What are the branches?
Yeah.
What is flexible, mutable, changeable? What is seasonal? What can come and go? What will remain? And what cannot be cut down?
Yeah. 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 I like that. And
For me,
that's
it's integrity. And I don't say it because I'm perfect at it. I'm saying it because I'm committed to whatever I've got will not be cut down so that I may grow more. I want to increase my integrity, and I'm inviting everybody to the party. For me, that's my trunk.
Yeah.
Now, my branches are purpose, gifts, potential. The first 10 tips of our book are my branches. And then how everybody interprets that, receives that, utilizes that are the leaves and the pollen and the other stuff. So when you asked your question just now, Sue, I saw a tree. and I'm
Yeah.
attaching our first 12 tips to it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and even with using the tree analogy too, what came to mind as you were speaking was the pruning of the branches. And sometimes when we prune, we actually get that growth. So,
I have an example for
yeah,
that too.
yeah,
I have
go.
an example for that too. There was a time in my life, maybe 2 years ago, I think, where I thought I wanted to run peer advisory groups. I thought I wanted to create my own. Do you remember? You've been with me
Yeah,
for a
I
long
do.
time. So I want
I
to run
do.
peer advisory masterminds,
Yes,
right? Because
I
I
remember
believe
you
in the
talking about it.
format. I believe in the format of mastermind, where the 12 people in a room, and on a turn-taking basis, everybody gets in the quote-unquote spotlight seat, like I'm in a spotlight right now, and they say, "Hey, my name's Jeff, and my name's Jeff. My issue is I like to cheer for Aztec basketball games, even if they play during business hours. That's my challenge. Help me through that." And then the other 11 people in the room will say, "Well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? Is this the challenge or is that the challenge? Is the challenge your Aztec fanaticism or is it your professional networking problem? Or is this what's the real?" And so there's a round of clarifying issues to get what the real issue is. And then there's another there would say, "Well, try this or contact this person or read this or this, right?" So one round is clarifying the issue. The other round is giving input and counsel on that issue. And I thought I wanted to
Yeah.
create a group and recruit. And I realized that Vistage has been doing this for a number of years, and they've got it systematized. And what I ended up doing, Sue, is I ended up coaching somebody, Jim Rastusha. God bless you, Jim, if you're out there. And he became the first person in San Diego to create a new Vistage group in San Diego in the 5, 6, 7 years that a lot of other people tried and failed.
Right.
And anyway, the reason I brought all of that up is because that was I pruned it, and I went back to my trunk.
Yeah.
My trunk
Yeah.
wasn't creating my own mastermind or peer advisory group. It was coaching somebody to stay the course on what it would take, a full-time effort, by the way,
Yeah.
to do it.
To do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. I love it. I love that example. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now I have another question for you.
Yeah,
Um,
what do you got?
the so I'm sure listeners, because these brands covered the world, they were global brands. There was, but from a product perspective, there was Kodak, there was Blockbuster Videos. Just two examples, and there's others that have failed. They didn't innovate, they didn't respond to the needs of the market. What might be some of the mistakes that, as a speaker, in the context of brand and branding, that we run the risk of making as speakers? Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Well, wow, that's a big question, Sue, or at least it triggers an
Well, maybe
enormity of
pick a little
thought.
bit.
All right. Number one, all right. What you're really talking about, tell me if I'm understanding. Stay relevant.
Yeah.
Stay relevant.
Yep.
The first thing that comes to mind is I don't care what your brand is. If you don't know your own brand well enough to substitute yesterday's examples for today's examples of what you're trying to communicate, then you're going to be at a loss. Stay relevant,
Yep.
right? And I'm
Yep.
telling you know, at San Diego State University, I'm struggling. Hey, everyone out there, Kluby is struggling. I'm struggling. Help me out. I need some help. I'm struggling because I'm fucking old. Okay, I'm old. I'm coming up with examples like coffee filters. My students are like, what the fuck is that? Excuse me. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You talk.
I, what's a coffee filter? Oh, it's this thing with microfibers, and they're like,
Yeah. It doesn't mean
okay,
anything to the audience.
okay. I'm saying like, oh, critical thinking. We want to question. I mean, you understand at San Diego State University, I'm teaching now these students, and it's post-COVID zombie era. Well, I was retired for 6.5 years. So before I'm working with these freshmen last fall and this spring, the last examples that I were using to teach public speaking were from 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, stop. I mean, like, I don't mean to chip out, Sue, okay? But the world had never seen number 45 when I had retired from speaking. I come back and we had 45 and COVID and the toll that COVID took because of 45 or whatever anybody in the world wants to blame it on. I'm not trying to be political or polarized or anything.
Yeah.
What I am trying to say is, how do you keep your brand relevant? You got to stay relevant. You got to know what's going on in this world. You have to know what the major media outlets are feeding our audiences. And you need to be able to stay relevant and find examples. And ideally, you'll play it right down the middle, but catch everybody's attention, because I believe that left and right are two wings of the same bird. I believe that red and blue are two wings of the same bird. But I need to be relevant and find the examples of what's going on in today's media that exemplify the communication principles that are timeless.
Yeah. So it comes back to really understanding that what we talked about, having that brand and that brand promise that is immovable, but how does that relate to the context of the current environment?
Yeah, integrity
Would
is
that be fair?
immovable. Integrity is immovable.
Yeah.
Having a brand is immovable, but what your brand is movable, right? And the other thing too is I could brand myself as an individual. I could brand my services. I could brand my org, right? Anything that can promise something to the marketplace is eligible to be branded.
Yeah.
And that's what we want speakers to understand. Like, what's my brand as a speaker? Do I have a brand for any products that I promote or sell as a speaker? If I'm inside of an organization, I have my brand as a project manager or as a lead technician or a senior scientist or a senior director of financial integration or whatever my title is. Now, what's my promise to my marketplace, which is my organization within that role? There's a title is not the same thing as my brand.
Yeah.
My title is where I rank or how to identify with me. My brand is my promise to the marketplace. And now the effectiveness of my brand is how well I communicate it and how well I let people know what to expect from me. And as we'll get into in the future weeks upcoming, of course, Sue, how well do I deliver on the expectations that I set? We're not even there yet.
Yeah. I really like that analogy that or that comment that you've just made, that title within an organization is not the same as my brand. And I've actually I've been experiencing that over the last few weeks, where I'm in a contract role, I have a title, and very much I have been actively, I guess, promoting my brand in terms of the value that I bring to the organization.
Yeah, that goes back to tip number 11. Don't be a spectator. You can't sit tight, because guess what? The person that hired you, the person that onboarded you, the person that sent you your offer letter, they don't give, no offense, but they don't give a shit about your personal brand and your succession plan through the organization. They're doing an administrative role to give you here's your cubicle, here's your business card. They're checking boxes, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right? The big difference between your title in the organization and your promise to the organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's up to you. It's up to you to communicate the latter.
Yeah, and certainly the advantage that I'm finding is making sure I do that, being conscious of opportunity to have those conversations is allowing doors to be opened to be more impactful in terms of what do I bring to the organization. And yeah.
Dare I ask? Dare I ask? Dare I ask? Is there anything
What?
about section 1 that's making those conversations easier? Is there anything about
Ah,
section 1 that's making you more fearless to introduce? Is there anything about section number 1 that's delivering these conversations in such a lovely and non-defense provoking way, or let's just say it, a non-threatening way? Has the integrity game, the first section of our book, the first 10 tips, helped you get into what you just said more effortlessly, like a hot knife through warm butter?
absolutely. 100%. Because I I can have those conversations confidently. I know what I bring to the organization, and the biggest shift that I've noticed is that I can let things go. I'm not emotionally reacting to situations.
Because they either
And
integrate or they don't with your game.
yep, spot on, spot on. Yep,
Is
yep,
it isn't it is it incredible to like to not be so guilt ridden about it, right? Like it's just matter of fact that integrates or it doesn't. Isn't that wonderful? And then what a lovely
yeah,
place from which to bring out our brand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I guess probably the one thing I would say is that I've had to be patient, and but it's been consistent in terms of showing up week to week, but looking for the opportunities to filter into a conversation. This is what I'm good at. This is what I can help with. But also coming back to not being a spectator is if there's a meeting, for example, be the one that stands up and takes the lead and not be fearless about it. And I had a conversation just the other day where another person commented, "Oh, you did really well. You did XYZ." And it was because I had the confidence. And it is very much about speaking. It's
Yeah.
about being able to gather my thoughts and to be clear on what I want to say. But I can do that. And so I'm not afraid to stand up and give my point of view.
You're lighting up right now. You're glowing right now. If anybody out there in the world can see this, like the energy fields are expansive around you. It feels like you turned a light on or something. It's so wonderful to see that. You know, I live for helping other people, right? I know how much help I've received in my life. I'm such a lucky person. You know, I come from some scarcity and some stinking thinking, and I'm still working my way out of it. And that's why I'm committed to the integrity game and everything it can do for me. And it means the world to me to see other people just like shining and glowing because of what we want to talk about and the good things. And it's just wonderful. I
Yeah.
am, I am going to get into last call, and this is fun, right? Because last call I got the banner for it. And last call for comments, questions, jokes, riddles, haikus, limericks, or expressions of gratitude. Here we go. Last call for today.
Well, for me, it's very much a gratitude for this opportunity to co-author with you. I have loved the experience of actually writing the book, but then now showing up every week, and but even beyond that, the whole experience of learning the framework of the integrity game, having over the past couple of years really build that into my own life and seeing the fruit. of that. And
It's
it
coming,
just,
right? It's like, oh my God, that was like a little pebble. It seems bigger now. It's almost ripe. I can start. Do you see yourself progressing? Feel yourself progressing? I mean, because
oh,
back at you, Sue. I'm so grateful because you're pumping life into everything I'm doing as well. But let me hear from you.
it is. It is. The progression is, and it's picking up momentum.
Yeah.
It's which I'm loving. I'm loving. So, I think to anyone that tunes into our conversations, that listens to recordings further down the track, I cannot underplay the importance of playing the integrity game for starters, but also really taking on board these tips that we're going through. And as we've said many, many times, even though we've done this as Get a Clue in 52 for speakers, these two first sections apply to speakers and non-speakers alike. And I feel like I'm
Indeed.
testament to that, and huge gratitude to you for your vision and the work that you've put into it.
Well, the gratitude is mutual, the love is mutual, and I'm on brand. I am of, by, and for the Aztec Nation, and anyone committed to personal professional growth. I'm your guy, and I believe soft skills make strong leaders, and soft skills make strong teams. Soft skills make strong organizations. And Get a Clue in 52. This year's tips are all about speakers, as you said well, and for non-speakers alike. 60% of these tips are for non-speakers alike. And
Exactly.
even those of you that don't consider yourself a speaker, hey, here's tip number 53. You're a speaker. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else before we dismiss for today, Sue?
No, nothing more from me. Just, I think, go and enjoy the environment that you're in. Lots of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Go Aztecs. Survive in advance. Welcome to Bracketville. Stay as long as you can. And in college basketball, you understand, last year at this time, I was unretired, my first semester of being unretired at San Diego State University, teaching organizational communication with a player on the basketball team in my class who had done all the right things, coming to me and communicating with me and staying in communication with me about what was going on. And here were the Aztecs advancing. And we went to the title game. We were one of the last two teams standing, and all eyes were on us. Our branding, and how do we represent ourselves, and how do we show up at press conferences? How do we get on and off the bus? What were we wearing? What, were our heads up or heads down? Everything. It was all OrgCom. They were interacting with media, interacting with trainers, interacting with the team, the athletic department, the conference, the NCAA. It was so wonderful to bring out, the men's basketball brand through organizational communication at San Diego State University. Recruiter be recruited, right? So my student a year ago recruited 6 of his teammates to come and be on an interview with me Sunday night office hours. I mean, anyway, I'm in it. I'm back. We're back. We're back in March Madness. We got 1 win down. We got 5 wins in front of us, and it's just incredible to be here and integrate everything. To show up authentic, to show up transparent, no holds barred, but totally ready. I knew where I'd be, and I made sure I was ready to stay consistent. Get a Clue in 52 with Sue. I love you so much. Thank you so much for supporting me all these weeks and for letting me bring you into my brand and share the brand and bring out your brand. And, because there's never just one brand, there's all brands, right? So I don't know what else to say. Anything else before we dismiss?
No, that's it. Yeah, really, really fun. Always good.
All right, we'll see you again next week. I'm sure we'll trade some text in between now and next. Tip number 13 is coming up. We're going to go deeper diving, right? We've been up here, conceptual. We're going to get into more specifics in the next couple of tips when we bring out your brand. It's going to be less conceptual and more practical. So for those of you that are watching the recording of this, or I don't even expect anybody's watching this live right now because we got March Madness going on in our country. Who am I kidding? But if you're watching the recording of this, we're starting up here to get you down here into action on bringing out your brand. We can't wait to see you next week. My name is Jeff. My co-author is Sue Mathieson. We'll see you next week with another
Sue
installment
Mathieson.
of Get a Klu 52 for Speakers. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.